Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka is both a senior lawyer and a senior politician, but he has acted most like a politician and not as a lawyer. Remember, he is a senior counsel. Today, we are talking about his proposed People's IEBC. As a lawyer who is a senior counsel, he should interpret the law and constitution for us. He should be the last person to go against the law and constitution. Where the law and constitution is not fair, he should lead both as a lawyer and a politician in correcting it by amending it, deleting it, or inserting certain clauses. This, we may say, we saw during the so-called NADCO. I say the so-called NADCO because in reality, it was a joint plan by both sides of political aisle then to come up with a formula that pleases them. That is what NADCO was. It was pretending to be out to correct anomalies, but the truth is it was out to please them. Some of the suggestions by the so-called NADCO were unconstitutional, suggested undemocratically, and unconstitutional amendment to our constitution, and a lot of it, to me, were impossible to implement. I will come to that point, but after the two principals on both sides went one way and the two deputies went the other way, Kalonzo is now coming up with another fiction in the name of People's IEBC. People's IEBC at best would be, or should I say, will be, a pressure group or an observer group without teeth. It cannot have finances, and without finances, how will it have staff, offices, and infrastructure such as cars, communication gadgets, and so on? They may have about 50 people at the head office. Each region, county, or constituency may have some semblance of staff. As I said, the best they can do is to be observing and making noise where they notice something is wrong. Can the so-called People's IEBC replace or correct something that they see going wrong? No. But at best, exposure and making noise has in the past raised public participation, which has been effective to some extent. Remember, at the 11th hour, Kalonzo Musyoka had called on Ruto to set aside the recruitment panel and have the two sides of the political equation come up and agree with the selection method. The Kenyan political landscape changes like a car indicator. In that, in a second, the light is on, and in another second, the light is off. If Ruto would have agreed, maybe somewhere along the road, 2 or 3 weeks ago, things would have changed and the new opposition would be coming out claiming that Kalonzo, like Raila, was part of the government. Remember, Kalonzo was recently said to have been going to State House, and he himself accepted that he has been visiting State House. So if during the time he had been visiting the State House, if he would have gone there and the president agreed to his suggestion, it would have ended up with him joining the gravy train. And what would have happened? What would have happened is other opposition leaders would have remained, kina Martha Karua, kina Gashagwa, kina Eugene Wamalwa, kina Matiang'i. They would have said that Kalonzo, Raila, and Ruto are the government. So they, as the opposition, would want also to be included in the gravy train. To politicians, if I was not included, then it is undemocratic. It only, to a politician, it only becomes democratic if I am included. If I am not included, then it is not democratic. That is how politicians handle things, at least Kenyan politicians. So politicians think that they are democracy. We have two things to discuss: NADCO and the constitution as it is now. The constitution as it is very unfair, especially in matters to do with IEBC. When NADCO came up, we thought that they were being more knowledgeable. Them being more knowledgeable, they would correct the wrongs. But what did they do? We will come there. We will come there. In our constitution, as it is today, there is a problem. There is a problem with the IEBC select panel, as the law talks now. First and foremost, the select committee, select committee, by select committee I mean the committee that interviews people and suggests who will become an IEBC commissioner. That is what I call select committee. First and foremost, the select committee should be left to the non-political actors. Because if we follow what these people are saying, they are not even saying that we have all political players. No, they talk of senior political players, big parties, to come up and join, like IPPG of 1997. This is similar to AFC Leopard and Gor Mahia and one or two big teams sitting down to elect people for the Kenya Referee Association. What about those small football clubs like Homeboys, Kakamega Homeboys? So if we have to have political parties sit together, then it has to be all registered political parties or none of the registered political parties. You can see that this select committee was delayed for quite some time when two sides of Wiper Democratic Party sent its person. One was saying that is not our person, this is our person, and the other one said this is our person, and they went to court. If political parties had not been given chance to place their people there, that would have meant that Wiper Party would not have had a chance to select somebody, and we would not have delayed for a long time because Wiper took each other to court to determine who is the rightful representative of Wiper Party. So in that case, I feel that all political parties should not participate. We should leave it to NGOs, non-government organizations, such as religious organization, SUPKEM, NCCK, etc., etc. We should have Law Society of Kenya. We should have a professional organization like NAT and KUPPET, etc., etc. If we could have kept ourselves to that, we could not have such a problem, like trying to determine who will represent who. Because when it comes to political parties, even if you ask them what do they want, and they tell you what they want, now if you tell them now implement it, they'll still pull and push each other for uh, for a long time without finding a solution. The other problem we had with the constitution as it is just about, I mean, the constitution. The other problem we had with the constitution is the way it is, but we will talk about it later. As the current constitution says, it says that the select committee selects 2 or 3 persons. I think 2 or 3 persons, one of whom the president selects to be vetted by parliament for the chair, and 9 people, of which the president drops 3. That is how our constitution is really bad, where it says that uh, the other problem we have is the work of this constitution as the select committee is told to function. It is told that the president should hand over 3 names, should be given 3 names by the selection committee, of which he will choose 1 name and forward the name to the MPs to vet and approve. And then it also says that the president will be given 9 names by the selecting committee to drop 3 names. I have issues with that. It should be done in such a way that the list by the select committee is final. That is my feeling. I would want the select committee to give 6 names of members and 1 name for the chair, so that the president is just a conveyor. The president is just a conveyor. This thing of giving the president 3 names, we may bring problems like this. That the new chair served as Nanox County Attorney, and it is even said that they are related. On the issue of relationship, I remember many subscribers castigating me that I'm related to everybody. Maybe the new chairman is also related to everybody. But let us say the truth. Are we not related to everybody? Are we not all children of Adam and Eve? Then I ask myself, we have found faults about him that are now cropping up. Where were they, these people who are now coming up with the complaints, before he even we were being allowed to give our, what do you call, our objections before they were even interviewed? But then they did not give the objections. They waited until the person has now been selected. That is when they come. I think there was need for that selection to be done, for that objection to be done before even he was interviewed, so that when he's being interviewed, they put into consideration about that. In my view, the select committee should forward exact number. As I've said, the exact number is they should, for the chairmanship or the chair, they should have given out 1 name, not 3. They should have given out exactly 1 name, so that the president forwards that name. You see, the constitution gives the president the prerogative. Now, Kalonzo Musyoka, being a senior lawyer and a senior counsel, he's saying that is Ruto friendly. The select committee should have been, the constitution should be changed such that the select committee is the one to blame, should there be blame for the selection. Now people are saying that maybe other people are forwarded, but the president had to choose a person who was very close to the employee of State House. That is my viewing that. And then the issue now comes, if the one name is rejected by Parliament, or even, I'm saying that let us start with the chairman or the chairperson. If the chairperson is given out one name, and either the chairperson is rejected by the Parliament or rejected by the Almighty. By being rejected by Almighty is that before he is sworn in, as the chairman or the chair lady or the chairperson, he dies or she dies, then the select committee would not even have to interview other people, but they'll be asked to forward another name to go through the same procedure. That is, if the candidate is rejected either by Parliament or by the Almighty. And also, about the sixth position. If the sixth position, it is almost impossible for the six of them to die at a go. But they say if the two die and two continue the work, then the select committee would have been asked to forward two nearest people who are there. Remember, for you to be shortlisted, it means that all those people who are shortlisted were qualified, but it is only that a few or one can be selected. Now, let us go back to NADCO. Concerning the NADCO, the idea was wrong now and in future. NADCO was Raila's way of waging his muscles, a thing that he has done with every election cycle. Remember the last election cycle, he used the word BBI. He used BBI. So every time he fails to go to State House, he usually creates certain things to muddy the water. With the AUC, broad-based government and etc., I would not be surprised if Raila cannot remember what on earth NADCO was all about. It was just a convenient vehicle for him to be relevant at that time, and right now I'm sure he has even forgotten about it. Of course, that if that is true, Kalonzo has been left in the traffic lights, which, as they say, kwa mataa. You pursue a vehicle, just as it passes the traffic lights turn red, and then the vehicle runs away. You stayed and wait for the lights to turn green again so that you pursue. That is where the people came up with the Swahili word umeachwa kwa mataa. So Kalonzo Musyoka ameachwa kwa mataa. Major recommendations of the NADCO were outlandish and could only be implemented by force. Just like the MPs are going to pass by force the NGCDF, they are going to use a system that is called 3Ws. 3Ws in Kiswahili says watu wapende au wasipende, just as Sharif Nasir used to say, whether you like it or not, it will go through. So that is how NADCO was. NADCO, just like all constitutional amendments, since independence, I'll repeat that one again. NADCO, like all other constitutional amendments since independence, has been brought to address current political and constitutional issues. They do not address things in perpetual. No, we're having a problem here and whatever. Let us settle this and that. That is how all amendments that have been there in Kenya since independence. Otiende Amolo once said that you cannot use unconstitutional methods to change the constitution. NADCO was an outsider, which was used to change the constitution. Just like matatus use the footpath to overtake vehicles so as to go ahead, that is how NADCO was. Raila then even went ahead and declared that whatever NADCO would pass, MPs were not allowed to amend, but they were to rubber stamp it the way it was to be. Is that constitutional? That is an unconstitutional way of amending a constitution. MPs were included in the setup by the Constitution of Kenya deliberately, which said that the MPs could change certain constitutional clauses, and they were also said that some other clauses the MPs could not change, which could call for a referendum. So there was the MPs were included up deliberately that such things should involve the MPs. But Raila, with his BBI, he came up and said whatever BBI will decide, the MP were to pass it without any amendment, without any alteration. That was passing a constitution using unconstitutional means. If they serve no purpose except rubber stamp what has been agreed, then why not just pass the constitution without involving them? During the 2005 and 2010 constitutional review, I expressed to the few people who are around me that Kenya can only have a lasting constitution if the public were, forget, people are now shouting public participation. Why should the public participate when they even don't know what they're participating about? What Kenyans need is public education, not public participation, public education. Then after public education, that is when we can now come up with public participation. We have various constitutions worldwide, but the major ones are three. One, Westminster Constitution. Two, French mixed constitution. Three, presidential constitution. So that at the end of the education, when people are being taught, then they would come up with their participation and decide, do they want Westminster Constitution, or do they want the French mixed constitution, or even the American presidential system? That is what I've always been saying. But what we have in Kenya today is 60%. If you ask any constitutional lawyer, he or she will tell you that in Kenya we practice presidential constitution, like the USA. But in reality, it is 60% presidential and 40% Westminster. Now, NADCO was trying to pitia katikati, like Kalonzo Musyoka used to say, by eating into both sides. Let's say take 10% presidential and take 10% from Westminster, and bring in and let the French mixed constitution, it passes in the middle, ipitie katikati, and we would have ended up with all of the above. And you know, when anything is concerning all of everybody, then it belongs, if something belongs to everybody, then it belongs to nobody. We cannot have all the constitution and then we say we have a constitution. I would suggest that in future, Kenyans are taught in greater details how the three constitutions are, the uniqueness of that, and then come up and decide, do they want the presidential? Do they want the parliamentary? Or do they want, parliamentary is called Westminster? Or do they want the French mixed constitution? I would tell you, Raila, there's a time in 1999 I wrote on the mailbox in the Daily Nation where I said that Raila favors the French type of constitution. Raila favors the French type of constitution. This is a constitution where the president goes around campaigning, like what Kibaki did in 2002. He campaigns and he becomes the president. Once he has been appointed the president, he goes and stays in the State House and then appoints somebody else to be the prime minister. Now, all the powers rests with an non-elected prime minister, but the person who campaigned was the president. That is the basis of the 2002 MOU. Raila knew in the 2002 that he can never be elected, but he wanted to campaign for Kibaki so that once Kibaki is elected as the president, so once Kibaki is re-elected as the president, he goes and opens the bar at State House and continues having his drink while Raila runs that is the West, that is the French mixed French mixed democracy. It works well in France, but you see, West African countries that speak French have tried that, and I can tell you that many military coups have happened in French-speaking countries than any in West Africa than in any other place in the world. That is the reason. We have also learned that what we were being told was 95% and 5% was wrong. We were being cheated. We were being told, it is almost perfect, but let us pass it the way it is. The 5%, we will come back one day and correct it. What we are now hearing is that powerful organizations such as NAT, National Union of Teachers, had to have their way, so lest they would unleash their ground power. In the original Bomas draft, it was said that all teaching, the whole of Ministry of Education, was to be run by county governments. But NAT wanted to be a unified organization so that the teachers are under the central government, so that the NAT can wield its power. If it would have gone the way Bomas draft wanted, it would have ended up with so many mini NATs, and the NATs wanted to be a unitary, very powerful body nationally. That is why they insisted that Ministry of Education still remain with the central government. So you see, we were conned. We accepted a constitution that NAT has dictated upon. We are now also aware of the fights between senators and the members of the National Assembly. It is only in Kenya where Senate is, I don't know what it is. It is not even a Senate. In other countries, the Senate is the upper house, and the National Assembly is the lower house. But today, the Senate as it is today in Kenya, it resembles the South African something. In South Africa, there is something that is called a Council of Provincial Prime Ministers. In South Africa, every province is headed by a prime minister. Every province, what we call county government, they have provincial government. The head of the provincial government is a uh, county premier. Either not a county, but a provincial premier. Now, in South Africa there is no Senate, but the Council of Provincial Premiers in South Africa is similar to what we have in Kenya, COG, Council of Governors. And the purposes that the senators do in Kenya today is what the Council of Provincial Premiers happens in South Africa. So, in a hurry to have a new constitution, we hasten so much that even the duties, look at the duties that our senators are doing today. Can't we just transfer them to the governors so that the sittings that we have today in Nairobi as the Senate can be taken over by governors so that COG, the Council of Governors, now acts as a Senate? Or we have a Senate that is the upper house. So that if you look at the Senate of Kenya today, what does it do? They are super MCS, and they don't involve anything national. They only involve matters of counties. And the members of the National Assemblies are very clever. Anytime they want to shut up the senators, they say that the topic we are talking has nothing to do with the counties. Now you know. Have a nice time. Thank you.